Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday, and welcome to the Booktube Chicks Book Club. Tonight, I am live with my amazing co hosts, Kathleen and Desiree, and tonight we're going to be discussing The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. The way that our live shows normally work is first we are going to do a brief synopsis of the book, and we're also going to cover content warnings for the book before we get started because we are going to be talking a lot about them. And then we are also going to do our initial thoughts, which are spoiler free, and then we'll go into spoilers. So we will be chatting for the next hour or so. And um, can somebody do the synopsis while I get my notepad? I realize I don't have my notepad with me.
I guess I can do it. It's hard to explain what this book is about. It's without spoiling. Essentially, um, you can to be very basic without spoiling anything. The Midnight Library is basically your many lives. So throughout your life, you have decisions, and these decisions affect where your life will go. And your Midnight Library is basically like what if you made this decision, where would your life go? So your Midnight Library is like essentially books of where you made a different decision than your real life and what would have happened in if you had made that decision. So our main character experiences her own Midnight Library where she gets to experience what happens if she had made a different choice than what she did in real life, which yeah, it's pretty amazing, but that's essentially the very basics of what this book is about.
So before we go into our initial thoughts, I do have a list of the trigger warnings that I had noticed while reading the book, and I just want to read them out before we go any further. So this entire live show, we are going to have content warnings for death of a pet, death of a parent, death of a sibling, suicidal thoughts and actions, and substance abuse. Those are everything that I was able to write down. If anybody else noticed any that I didn't say, please go ahead and say them. But if not, we're going to go ahead and do our initial thoughts. Kat, if you want to go ahead and start.
Sure. So I mean, when the BookTube chicks talked about doing this book, I obviously read the synopsis and I was agreed to do it, but I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. I read the synopsis and it flew out of my head as soon as I was done because I had absolutely no idea what the book is about, and so I kind of went into the book blind and honestly went with the BookTube chicks books. That's generally what I do. I don't really bother reading the synopsis. I have to read the book regardless, so synopsis at the end doesn't really matter. Um, so I was pleasantly surprised by this book. I thought the plot, like the concept of the plot, really interesting with the whole Midnight Library where you have a chance to live out your alternate choices, and they're in form of books, which I think is cool because as readers, obviously we love books, and I think that will be cool to read what will happen if you had chosen a different choice in your life. So I really, really enjoyed the concept. I really liked our main character. I don't want to go into spoilers, but I liked her main character. Even though she had all of these things from her main life that led to many of her choices, I almost felt like she didn't go down the path of a whiny character, like someone that feels sorry for herself. And that's something that I really enjoyed. Sometimes when we read a lot of YA books, especially as someone who reads a lot of YA books, I come across as very whiny characters, and she was not one. And I'm not saying this, I don't think this is a YA book, but just in general, as me who reads a lot of YA books, she was not a whiny character, which I really, really appreciated. And even though she made certain choices that would essentially make us feel bad for her, but I really liked that about her. there's other characters in the book. Mrs. Elm, who is the librarian, I liked her. She was very sympathetic to our main character, and she was someone that obviously made an impact on our main character's lives because she was the librarian in our main character's midnight library. But yeah, it was just overall a really enjoyable book. Like, really love the concept. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. I was debating between 4 and 5 stars, but essentially I don't think it's a book that I will ever read again. I wasn't completely like, oh my God, this book is amazing, mind blown, whatever. But I loved the book. There was nothing I did not like about the book. But essentially I settled on 4 stars.
I think kind of like you, I wasn't fully sure of what the book was about, even though I did read the synopsis a couple of times. I just knew that like there was a lot of hype surrounding it and a lot of people had been reading it and it was on like the bestseller list and whatever else. I did enjoy the characters. I enjoyed like the principle of the story. I enjoyed her journey, as she's living all these different lives. You kind of just never know what's going to happen in them or how they're going to go. I like that the author helped keep the story like grounded by including pop culture references. So it wasn't just this story about the Midnight Library that was all like fantastical and stuff. The fact that there was pop culture references in there just kind of reminded me of the day-to-day and our normal lives and how people can go through different things. So I think like Kat, I also feel like I would give it 4 stars. I don't know if I would necessarily reread it. I might want to. I thought the audiobook was really good. I thought the person who read the audiobook did a great job. I would recommend it to other people though. Like I'm hoping that John will listen to the audiobook since I ended up buying that for us anyway. So, but I would probably give it 4 stars as well.
I agree with what everyone is saying. I also gave this book 4 stars and I did listen to the audiobook. Excuse me. I felt that it was very fast paced, and I do think that The Midnight Library is a book that has been very hyped over the past year or so, but also is not something where it's something where you read the synopsis and you're still like, well, what is it about? Like, I don't understand. And that's how I felt even after reading the synopsis, like multiple times leading up to me reading this book. But overall, I found the book to be very fast paced. It was moving along very well. I don't want to divulge into too much before we hop into spoilers, but I found it really enjoyable. And I'm not sure if Matt Haig is an author that I would immediately go to again. I may have to test out a couple of his other things before making a deciding factor on this. But it was definitely an enjoyable read and very interesting. And the concept was very interesting as well, being in this library between, well, I can't really say that either. But it was good. And I think we should go into spoilers now before I accidentally spoil it. So
Cat's like flickering in and out.
Yeah, I'm going to turn off my camera because my iPad, the camera keeps flickering. So it's kind of bugging me. So I'm just going to keep the camera off.
Okay.
Where would we like to start as far as spoilers for this book are concerned?
Well, I feel like the big spoiler is like pretty close to the beginning, right? I mean, is that it's like the foundation of the book. Hold on. I mean, you can keep going.
I was just going to say the fact that she died.
Yeah.
Yeah, she kills herself.
And yeah. So, that's how she ends up at the Midnight Library with all these like rules in regards to it being midnight and the time staying the same, and that she can like jump in and out of these alternate lifetimes, I guess, or alternate timelines. It was, I think they did use metaverse to describe it, right? In regards to.
I don't remember, but that does make sense.
I don't. There's like one thing that was bugging me about the story, but I don't want to jump straight to that because it was like closer to the end, so I'd rather like talk about other things. But the whole thing with the cat was really sad to me.
Yeah, that seemed to be the thing that kind of kicked off the story, and well, with that and her being fired from her job was kind of the downward spiral into what brought us to the Midnight Library.
Right, and she also wasn't like on speaking terms with her brother. And so there was just like a lot of things not going well for her.
I would like to say that I'm glad that Nora, the main character, had so many different interests across her lifetime that it was very interesting to see when she was going into these different lives, like different ways that her life could have gone if she had, you know, stayed in the band, or if she had I can't remember the scientist term, or if she became like a scientist, or if she had done all these different things. So I like
glaciologist, I thought.
Yes, that word. I like that she had all these different interests because it made it really interesting seeing all the different lives as opposed to it being pretty similar across the board.
The thing I thought, I don't know anybody who was that. To be honest, I thought her life was a bit unrealistic. She had so many things going on, and I don't think like any normal person would have. I don't think we lost Desiree. Would have that many different life, because she was an Olympian, because she swam, was it swimming at one point, and she was a great because she was a whatever that means. She was a glaciologist, which she had interest in science. And then she was also in another life a psychologist because she studied, and then what other life she had? There was something else totally different. But it just feels
band.
Right. And I was like, I mean, it's fine for many people to have different like small minor hobbies throughout their lives, but it almost seemed like, I don't know if maybe, I don't know. To me, it just seemed like, what kind of person has this much time in their life, you know?
I kind of disagree. Well, I mean, if you say unrealistic in a way that's like those people don't exist, I would disagree with that because I've met a lot of those people. Like, I know somebody that works as like a character rigger for a video game company, and while I was getting to know him, he was an EMT. He did this thing, he did that thing. Like, I was just in complete awe in regards to the different amount of professions he had over the years, and all things that you would have to do some sort of training for. And it was just like, wow, like I couldn't imagine my life being like that, but those people exist. It's I don't know if it's like just a willingness to try things because you don't know where you're going to land, or, you know, doing something and then failing at it and getting back up and trying something different. But those people definitely exist.
I forgot about the part where she was an Olympian. I forgot about that. So I'm glad somebody mentioned that.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that too. Danielle in the chat mentioned something about Mrs. Elm. She says, I wonder if the librarian was really Mrs. Elm or if it was a version of her that Nora made up in her mind. They mentioned that everyone has a different librarian from their life.
I think Mrs. Elm was someone that made an impact on our life. Because at the end, she goes to visit Mrs. Elm in the nursing home. And then she, for some reason, her subconscious put her as a librarian. I don't think it was the actual real, you know, Mrs. Elm's actual subconscious in her Midnight Library. I just think it was her version, what's her main character's name again? Nora. I think it was just her version of Mrs. Elms, like who she believed Mrs. Elm, like her interaction with Mrs. Elm. That's who the librarian was. So
I agree. I think it was somebody who had an impact in her life, even if it was at a younger age. And maybe she was also like a sense of comfort for Nora, and that's why she visualized her in the Midnight Library.
yeah.
Not just that, but Mrs. Elm tells her in the Midnight Library that the Midnight Library is essentially just a translation of information that she wasn't ready to process. So I think like Mrs. Elm herself is just a trustworthy figure that she came up with to basically talk back.
I mean, it would have been cool if it was the actual Mrs. Elm. Then we got like, you know, some kind of, what was that movie that we liked? Inception thing going on.
Yeah, like that's exactly what I was thinking of though. Like when you you know, forgive me if you haven't watched Inception. I don't think this is very spoilery, but there's characters in your dream, and they basically explain that those are your consciousness that you've created, and they kind of function to be there to kind of feed information back to yourself. Yeah. So it's kind of like that.
Something that I'd like to touch on, which is it's kind of towards the end, but it's also throughout the book, is I feel like Nora experienced so much growth as a character from the start of the book to the end, which I feel like is something that, you know, I might not see as much in other books that I read, or if it's there, I don't pick up on it as much. I think it was something that was definitely noticeable in this book in particular.
I think part of that, though, was the fact that you get to see her experience in each book, and then she kind of comes back to the library, and Mrs. Elm would almost explain to her like what happened or what she went through or how she changed, how she was different. So it would be hard not to notice that when like a secondary character is kind of explaining to you after you just watch Nora go through all of it. But I like the way that was done, and I liked that I looked forward to like her living out each life to find out, well, what is she going to gain from this life?
Sometimes I do wish that each life went longer. I feel like sometimes I was frustrated when she had to come back, especially on the life that she wanted, the one with the husband really and the daughter. Lives. And I kind of like, you can see her gaining, she stayed so long, she started gaining memories from that particular life. And her husband was noticing that she was different. I wish I could see, maybe not like the whole entire life, but I wanted to see like maybe a few years down the line with her being that not the version from that life, but the version that she is with the Midnight Library. A few years down the line, how their family's doing, how the husband is doing, knowing that there's something weird with his wife and the daughter. There were certain moments I wish I could see a little bit more.
What did you think about like her finding out that there were other people like her and the conversations they had in like their encounter?
I thought that was interesting, and I thought it was interesting how he had no problems with it, and that he was like just living out each life as if it's no big deal. And I was like, I would totally do that for a little bit until I got frustrated with everything. But I think it was cool that he just totally accepted it, and he was just, you know, having the time of his life with all his different versions of life. Because I would totally think up crazy scenarios just to see how that life would end up. You know, like what if I was, you know, a circus performer? I think that would just be interesting to see everything.
I did find that to be very interesting where we met this new character. I kind of wish we had seen maybe like one other person who was like that. And I'm not sure if it was touched on in the book, but I also wish we had seen where that particular character ended up. Although it would be hard with a first person book.
Do you think that, because obviously the conditions for the Midnight Library to appear are very similar, do you think it's possible that maybe, I think his name was Hugo, maybe Hugo was in like a stable coma state? Does he explain? No, I don't think he explains. He doesn't say like what he was doing before he ended up in his own library or whatever.
I don't remember him explaining it.
Because I feel like to be able to go in and out of lives the way he was doing and kind of using it as like vacation time and just fun, I feel like he would, his root life would have to be non-changing, I guess.
Yeah, it definitely kind of makes me want to think about, what state different people are in. Like, we know how Nora got to that point. I can't remember, did she wake up in the same spot, and I can't remember.
That was the impression that I got, and then she like asked her neighbor for help. It was my understanding. Kat, is that how you?
Yeah, I remember that.
Came back where? At the very end?
Yeah, to her root life.
Yeah. Remember she had just taken the drugs. She was trying to overdose, and she went to the neighbor's house so he can call. It was literally, she literally came back to the exact minute.
I forgot that. I remembered the neighbor, but I remembered her seeing the neighbor in one of the, like, not her real life. So I was like, wait a minute. I thought the neighbor wasn't really her neighbor, but I was getting confused.
Yeah, she came back to the exact minute, and this time she wanted to live. So she went to her neighbor, and he called the ambulance, I guess.
So Danielle here kind of said the same thing that I was thinking, where it's like there can't just be two people in this state. Like, I definitely think that there are more people in this state, and I think it would have been interesting to see at least one other person that was experiencing the same things that Nora and Hugo were.
I mean, yeah, it's you would think they may have come across like one more. Maybe the author didn't want to give him a whole other unique Midnight Library and decided not to bother with that. But
I think
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, finish.
No, I was just gonna say that like Hugo had a name for them and he called them sliders, so obviously there was a bunch more of them, just not on page.
I'm definitely sure there's more. It can't be just two. I'm sure there are more if the fact that that guy existed. But I also think, yes, I think it would be cool to see one more person. But I'm trying to think of how would it contribute to the movement of the story, because we already saw the movement of the story from her discovering that she's not the only one who experiences a Midnight Library. But I think it would be cool to have met someone else.
Not for nothing, but I was kind of offended at where he decided to check out. Like,
what?
Where he, like, they were talking to each other, and then all of a sudden he left. He left, like, the shared timeline.
But I thought they don't have choice when they live or leave. She always leaves at the most inconvenient moments, like moments that she doesn't realize. She says she feels her when she's about to leave, but she doesn't. I don't think she's ever had a choice. So I think it was the same for him.
I swore Mrs. Elm told her, if you ever decide you don't want to be there, you can just come back. Like, I thought that's
probably,
what Mrs. Elm had told her.
But remember the life that she wanted to stay so long, and she didn't have a choice. She had to leave.
Yeah, but that those conditions for that were completely different, because in every other life she decided, man, this kind of sucks. This person I hurt, or this person isn't here, or this person isn't that. And like, so she wanted to leave in those instances, but the one where she wanted to stay, Mrs. Elm explained to her, she was like, Nora, it's not because the Midnight Library wants you to die. It's because you decided to live. So she was enjoying that timeline so much that she finally wanted to live, and that's what started moving the pieces again.
Yeah, I guess that's not something that I noticed. For me, when I was reading the story, it almost made it seem that she was taken aback. Yes, she wanted to leave, but it would, I don't know. It just, to me, it didn't feel like it was her choice. But what you said makes sense.
Kind of piggybacking off of that, the life that she was in, with where she had the husband and a daughter. I know that this book isn't a romance, but I was really enjoying that life where it seemed like her and Ash were very happy together. And I kind of wanted to see that, like, her have some initiative in her real life, to kind of like kickstart something like that.
I mean, it seemed like she was still contemplating trying
Yeah,
to.
she talked about it at the very end. She was like, because I think they met in a coffee shop or something, or she was gonna ask him for coffee, and I think she was like, maybe this time he'll ask me for coffee, and then she said, or maybe I'll ask him for coffee or something like that. So I think it's nice that the author kind of left it as is, uh, because it made it seem that she's finally starting to accept that she can make these big choices in her life and it might have a big impact, and that, she's finally, I don't know, I just liked it the way it left it open-ended.
I'd have to go back and reread it, but just to revisit this Hugo thing, Danielle said, yeah, because they said that you leave when you know you don't want that timeline. So why would he leave in the middle of a pleasant conversation? That's the thing. I don't think they were having a pleasant conversation. I think Nora was getting distraught in that moment for whatever reason, and she started asking these questions. And I feel like he was like, this is not fun for me anymore. And he bounced, which is why I was upset about it. I was like, dude, what the hell? So
See, but I don't remember him checking out at one point. I don't remember that happening, and I don't have a copy of the book to look at it.
he literally said to her, I'm sorry, I don't know who you are. And then she was like, yeah, me either. And she left right after him.
Oh, I remember that. Okay, yeah.
I remember her leaving. Okay, I'm like completely blanking on when he left.
It seemed messed up because it seemed like she had met him and they had something in common. And not that I thought there was going to necessarily be a romance between them, but it seemed like he provided a little bit of support in that timeline. And I thought they were going to be more supportive, but it just seemed like he's like, I've had enough of this. I'm out. So,
something
Not
that
lie, I wish that there was that choice in real life where I could just like, see ya, don't care, bye.
gotta bounce.
gotta go.
Exactly. Like, this is making me uncomfortable. I'm bouncing.
Something that I noticed throughout the different lives that she lived was she had in her real life, she wasn't talking to her brother. And then in a handful of other lives, he was dead. And I was really happy that when she got back to her original life, there seemed to be a resolution between the two of them. I was worried that there wouldn't be a resolution, but it seemed like everything kind of wrapped up a little like nicely for certain subplots.
He came to visit her in the hospital, right? Yeah, so I agree. I thought it wasn't, honestly, I didn't know how it was going to end, but I liked that there was a bit of like closure at the end where, he went to visit her in the hospital. She hasn't talked to him in a while, and it seems like it was a beginning of a new direction that they go to. But also the friend that lives in England, I think, or wherever, and that she's talking about wanting to, catch up. And also she said that she's thinking of moving back. which, you know, one of the reasons Nora was so depressed is because she felt like she lost her friend and she lost the opportunity. One of the lies was that she, you know, she got to go live with her friend. But I really liked that there was these closures to these little threads throughout the story of, you know, some of the reasons why she decided to, you know, in the very beginning, take her life. I agree with you. I really do like that there was a lot of closure.
You're
Especially
right.
also with Mrs. Elm at the end. That's probably my favorite scene in the whole story, where she went to play chess with Mrs. Elm, and Mrs. Elm was like, I don't know, I got the impression, I don't know if maybe I misread something or making it up, but I got the impression that not a lot of people visit Mrs. Elm. So I appreciated that scene.
And I'm glad that you pointed out, because I completely forgot it was her, and I want to say her name was Isabel. They were supposed to live in Australia together, and she ended up backing out. But I'm glad
Australia.
You mentioned that. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I don't know why I completely forgot about that one.
What in that life where she chooses to go? Oh, now I remember. And when she chooses that life, her friend died, right? In an accident. She wasn't even, like, when she got to that time, that story where she ultimately decides to move to Australia with her friend, she didn't even get to experience being with her friend because her friend was dead. And I was like, oh my god, this is all these alternate lives are horrible.
Okay, so Danielle says, I just reread a few parts where she returns to the library. It doesn't seem like she can control it. It's just that sometimes she goes willingly and she can feel it coming.
Yeah, see, that's how I felt. Always thought, like, yes, maybe she didn't want the life, but I always, for some reason, thought that she wasn't able to control when she comes back. But again, what you guys said makes total sense. Like, she doesn't like the way this life ended up. Like, for example, in the many lies where her brother's dead, I wouldn't want to be there either. So maybe subconsciously she chose to come back, but I don't know.
I think it's possible, because in each life she is kind of learning some lesson, and maybe she just doesn't have awareness of what that lesson is necessarily. So like the lesson happens and she kind of learns something new, but she doesn't know right away what it is. But maybe that's what kind of triggers her being pulled in or out.
Yeah.
Here's the thing that upset me in the whole book, though. So I feel like they're kind of telling you that there's this multiverse and different realities that overlap, and it's based on choices, and each choice can kind of spring a different path forward in regards to how things go. But at the end, when she's finally talking to her brother and they mentioned Ewan, she was very adamant that he needed to talk to Ewan and that it would all work out. And she even says, I'm 100% sure. And that bothered me, because how are you 100% sure? What if this is the one timeline where this guy decides that he's not going to be gay? Like, I don't know. That just, like, it bothered me that... What?
Wait. I see what you're saying, but...
like, that's a lot of... She was like, I'm 100... I don't know. It gave me anxiety because I was like, how do you know? How do you know?
Wait. Okay, sorry. I misunderstood what you said because her brother was closeted. Okay. Because you said choose to be gay, and I'm like, you don't really choose to be. But I understand what you mean.
Yeah,
I understand what
I'm just saying, in that timeline, maybe Ewan is just not in that timeline.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Not necessarily a choice, but like, how does she know that?
I agree. Yeah, I didn't think about it. I thought it was nice because, I didn't think it from your point of view. I just thought it was nice. Oh, she's like, oh, she saw them together and happy in another life. She wants the same for him in this life, but I feel like she should have learned something from all of this. Is that any choices lead to different things, and obviously he made certain choices to get to where they are in that life, but this life could be completely different, as like you said.
But maybe what you said is accurate, that because it's not a choice, that maybe in every timeline Ewan is gay. because it's not a choice that he made. I don't know.
Yeah. But it is a choice of whether he's closeted or not. He could live his entire life as a straight man.
Yeah, it's also
he could
a choice.
Choose to make that choice, but
it's also a choice whether or not he wants to accept a date with Joe. But I just like
exactly.
She just gave her brother a lot of hope, and I was like, man, like there's no such thing as that kind of certainty. Like she came out of nowhere and she was like, no, you have to do it. You have to do it 100%.
Yeah, I think I would have liked her to say, I think you should give it a try, rather than you should do it. I 100% guarantee, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, but, it's not. But I think I didn't even think about it. I'm sure the author probably didn't think about it either.
I was also happy that this had like short chapters, because short chapters are always nice.
I almost expected it to be, before I started like seeing all the short chapters, I expected it to be very like lyrical. I don't know if that makes any sense. I just kept thinking of like how some books are written in verse.
Wait, why did you expect this to be lyrical?
I don't know. It looked like it would be from like the really short chapters, and I was like, oh, maybe it'll be.
I mean, and once I started reading the story and I kind of got a grasp on what it was, I thought the book would be more philosophical than it was, but I didn't get that much of a like philosophy.
Well, I feel like he was probably saying it without saying it, if that makes any sense. Because like, all the names of philosophers were popping up in certain situations, and like that's one of the things that might make me reread it, to go back and take note of that, and figure out what those philosophers are famous for, or what their philosophies are, stuff like that.
See, I only know about Voltaire because we recently finished watching The Great, and they have like fictionalized him in that show.
Fill us in, because I don't know what. Like I know the name and I've heard it, but I
don't know anything about Voltaire. I just know that he was a real figure, and every time I
hear that name, it makes me think of the Princess Diaries scene. Voltaire, hair. I would like to learn more about Voltaire. I also don't know anything about Voltaire, so.
Wait, hold on. So I pulled up a paragraph. It says, Voltaire believed above all in the efficiency of reason. He believed social progress could be achieved through reason, and that no authority, religious or political or otherwise, should be immune to challenge by reason. He emphasized in his work the importance of tolerance, especially religious tolerance.
Oh, okay. I like that.
See, that makes sense, because in The Great, that is exactly how the main character is. So that makes a lot of sense.
But yeah, I'm sure the author was super purposeful with all the philosophers in there. So,
out of all the lies, which one would you say stayed with you? I wouldn't say it made the most impact, but like for me, for example, the one where she's a rock star and she finds out during the interview that her brother is dead. That really, I don't know why, but it really triggered me. I felt so bad for her. Like I felt her devastation, and because I have siblings, I have a brother and a sister, so I can only imagine her pain, and especially because I'm obviously these people didn't know that she, that version of her didn't know, but I can't not imagine her devastation finding out during an interview that your brother overdosed, and that one life made me it just devastated me.
I don't know if that was the most memorable to me, because there were other things that she experienced. I mean, that was definitely the most heartbreaking. As someone who's lost a sibling, I can tell you that pain doesn't ever really go away. It's just something you have to carry with you and move forward with. So I'm sure that was, terrible for her.
Yeah. It's just I don't know why it is that scene just stuck with me, with her finding out and her trying to be like, what? And she like broke character, because I'm sure she was trying to pretend she's like this super rock star, and she like broke character, and she started asking what to say that again, and like she was acting like she was incredulous. She was like, she was not believing what she was hearing, and it was just really, really sad.
So my internet decided to crap out for just a second while you guys were talking, but I did get the gist of everything that was being said. As far as
sorry, I was just asking like what life like stuck with you for some reason or another.
I know you guys were talking about where she was a rock star, and I definitely I think if it hadn't had gone the way that it did, where she found out during the interview about her brother, then she probably could have enjoyed that life or made it work somehow. And I don't know if any particular one really stuck out to me, but I did have a favorite, and that was the one where she like taught at the college, and she was married, and she had a kid. And I really enjoyed that life. But there was a moment in that life where she was talking about, could she really be here, where she realizes that she's missed 4 years of her child's life and she doesn't remember any of it. Granted, she probably would have remembered the longer she was there, but I still understand where she was coming from with that life.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. This one thing that the fact is, yes, she has this child, and who knows, maybe when she has a child, it will never be that child. But if it was, I mean, personally, I don't think I want kids. I'm like 99% sure I want kids. I am not, haven't made fully my decision. But if I was in her situation where, she got the second chance of life, and just the thought that in the future I might have this particular child, and she's going to bring me so much joy, and I'm going to love her, and she's going to be such a joy in life in general, would make me look so much forward to being a mother in the future. It just, the fact that she experienced motherhood and that it's a possibility for her now that she has the second chance of life, I think it's a really beautiful thought. I mean, if I knew for sure that I would have this kid in this world, in this particular, I already experienced this, what's like having this child, and now I get to go back and relive my life again, and knowing that I'm going to have this child and experience the joy of having this child again. I don't know. I will find it comforting. Yeah.
I think that timeline where she discovered that she was married to Ash and like a philosophy teacher, and I thought the game that she played with her daughter was very creative in regards to how she figured out all that information without being too sus. I was like, wow, go you, Nora.
I was like, that is so... Yeah, I thought that is very smart, because this is a young child. She's not sure why her mother's asking all these questions, but she's not going to question it. Yeah, I agree. It was pretty clever.
And she was like, "What's your dad's name?" Daddy. No, what's his real name? So I think to me that timeline kind of stuck with me the most, because Ash I didn't carry a memory of Ash with me throughout the book. Like, I wasn't even thinking of him, like I don't know if I was expecting him to pop back up. I wasn't. Yeah, I know like he was in the beginning of the book and he had a purpose there, but I had not expected him to pop back up. So when he did, it was kind of interesting. Not just seeing like where she was in that life, but getting to know Ash and what he was like and why they ended up together and stuff like that.
Yeah, I really liked the. I can. It was just such a like a fairy tale little life. I really enjoyed it, and I can see why she so wanted to stay in that life. In fact, when she was forced to come back. She tried to ask for the same life with just like some minor detail changed because obviously she can't experience the book again. So she was like, "What if I were blue that day? Can I experience that life all over again with just one minor detail?" And she was like begging Mrs. Elm.
She was like, "What if instead of coffee we have tea?"
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, "That's totally what I would do." Yes.
But she also did mention, because Mrs. Elm was like, "Did you feel completely comfortable there?" And she said no. She kind of said that like it was really perfect, but that she felt like she was just dropped into there, not that the life belonged to her, you know? So I don't remember if they clarified,
Yeah,
but I
that's
know
true.
And isn't that where she wanted, like,
God.
isn't that like when she decided that she wanted to keep living?
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
Is there anything else that anybody wanted to touch on? I kind of blew through my notes pretty fast. You're muted, Desiree.
Danielle said, "I wonder if she ever reached out to her friend Isabel."
I think she did because
I think I remember.
it wasn't it at the Isabel's the person in Australia, right? And then Isabel sent while she was at the hospital, she sent a text to Nora saying that they needed to catch up, and she apologized. I remember specifically she apologized because she was busy or something, and that they needed to catch up, and then she mentioned that she is thinking about moving back. And that was like the only little closure that we got from our Australian friend.
Yeah, I wish we had seen a bit more with her, because we really only saw the life where she was dead and then the little bit of closure at the end. I think it would have been interesting to see more of their friendship.
And I don't think we mentioned this in the beginning, but I feel like another content warning would probably just be depression. Because the majority of her lives, she was depressed in some way or didn't want to continue.
The majority of her life, something really bad happened. Yeah.
And then it seemed like she was on medication in some of them, but not the others. And I wasn't exactly sure what the author was trying to say with that. Like, because I think the life where she was happy with Ash, I think she mentions that she couldn't find medication anywhere or anything.
I believe it was Desiree that said this earlier. You said you wanted to touch on something, but that was more towards the end. Did you get to touch on it?
Yeah. It was just that I was upset about Hugo. No. It was the thing with her being 100% certain that her brother should reach out to Ewan.
Okay, I was just wondering because I remember you said that in the beginning.
So I feel like I would probably pick up one of his other books. I don't know how many of them are similar to this one or if they're like mostly fantasy or what else he writes, but I'd be willing to check them out.
What do you even categorize this book? Is it it's not fantasy. It has fantasy elements, but like, what do you categorize it? I don't even know.
I'm gonna look it up.
It
almost seems
my
sci-fi.
guess would be, I was gonna say magical realism, or like a contemporary magical realism. literary fiction. I'm not sure.
Let me see. Yeah. I mean, although I'm looking on Amazon, but Amazon classifies things really weird sometimes.
Yeah, I don't really generally trust Goodreads or Amazon. But again, I absolutely have no clue what you would eat. Like, what would you put this under besides adult fiction?
Okay, so it's in time travel science fiction, time travel fiction, and women's literary fiction.
Wait, this is so off topic, but I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I generally don't think about genres too much, but isn't women's literary fiction generally written by women? That's how I always thought of it. Or is it because the main characters are women?
Yeah, I think so. And then it's also like women's fiction would deal with the stuff that like issues that women deal with. And if there's any romance, it would have like romance in the background versus the forefront. I believe.
Interesting. Okay. I always, for some reason, in my head, it was always like women's fiction was generally like a genre that women wrote, not necessarily. But again, I don't usually think about genres too much, so I'm totally wrong, I guess, in this case.
So on Goodreads, and this is just, I assume this is just based on like the bookshelves people have created for his book, but it's categorized as fantasy, contemporary, magical realism, science fiction, and then mental health.
Oh, Chloe dropped out on us. I think I would. I wouldn't say fantasy. I think it is more of like adult fiction with sci-fi-ish elements. I don't. Oh man. There she is. Okay. Yeah. But I think I like what Amazon put: adult fiction with or time traveling, science fiction, something like that. Yeah, I like that. I think that's the most accurate. But then again, she's not time traveling though.
I mean, it's complicated.
Exactly. I mean, because I restarted bullet journaling again, except I'm doing it on my iPad, so it's not a physical. And I have a part where I have to put, I wrote genre, and I put this as sci-fi, and I was gonna change it to time travel, but I was like, that's not time traveling. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna be like sci-fi, complicated sci-fi.
I am like, I had no idea he has written so many books.
Danielle said that magical realism was a good answer. Yeah, I think so too. I think magical realism is also a really good answer.
I'm not 100% sure, but I feel like I watched a Booktube review another one of his books, and I think depression comes up a lot in his stories. Like that was the impression that I got. So I don't know if that's like a healing thing for him, you know, or like cathartic or whatever. But he wrote a quirky rom-com called How to Stop Time.
See, that sounds like traveling.
So. I'm really
I recently saw Kayla from Books of Lala read one of his books, and it was about aliens.
Yeah, that's the book that I think. Do you remember what the name of it was?
Like We Are the Humans, I think. What it was called.
What did she think of that?
I don't.
It's called The Humans.
I can't remember. Oh, The Humans. I don't remember. And I think he's also written some like juvenile chapter books as well.
Yeah. And
basically, he has range.
Yeah, yeah. And he has one called like The Dead Fathers Club. It says a ghost story with a twist. So I don't know. I'm curious. I think I'll definitely pick up more of his stuff.
I don't think they're all fiction though. It looks like some of his books are. Like
Oh,
he has a book called The
maybe.
Comfort Book,
Mhm.
and it says it's Haig's Life Raft. It's a collection of notes, lists, and small stories written over a span of several years that serve as gentle reminders to Haig's future self. So I don't think they're all necessarily like fiction, kind of like this one. But I would definitely like be open to reading another one of his books. I guess I would have to see what his other books are. But yeah, you're right. He has written quite a few though.
I'm not sure I have anything else to add other than I enjoyed the story and I'll probably recommend it to people if they don't already know, since it's so.
Yeah, same. It was
Yeah,
a pleasant surprise.
yes, I second that. I didn't know what to expect going in, but I think overall it was a good book and it was
Wait,
enjoyable.
Chloe, I didn't hear. What did you rate the book?
I rated it a 4.
Desiree, you the same?
Yeah, 4.
Okay.
I think this is the first time we all have the same rating, like in a while. um so yeah, if we don't have anything else, then we can go ahead and chat about some upcoming things going on for the Booktube chicks. Kat, do you happen to know when Pages and Pals is off the top of your head?
Yes, so Pages and Pals is actually next weekend. It is going to be on March 5th. March 5th. It is going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. It is on my channel.
All right, and both of them are linked in the description below. And then I think the next thing coming up after that is the March Book Club. And I happen to have the book. We're going to be reading The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, which I found out is both a Cinderella retelling. It's a Cinderella retelling and a thriller, which I didn't know. So
it's
I
a thriller.
am intrigued and interested. Yeah, I didn't know that. I don't think it's super thriller.
What did you think it was, Kat?
I thought it was fantasy. I didn't know.
No.
I have absolutely no clue what the book is about. Inheritance Games.
I thought it was a fantasy
making
too.
me think like sci-fi or fantasy because of Hunger Game. I don't know. I didn't think it was a thriller.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere that they compared it to Knives Out, so that's why I was like,
really? Okay. Interesting.
I've never seen Knives Out, so I don't know. Well, it has short chapters, so that's a good thing.
And I also did not know.
We're going to be reading this.
I did not know about the whole Cinderella thing either, so that's cool.
Again, me neither. I was looking up other Cinderella retellings, and this was on the list. And then I read the synopsis, and it made sense. So we're going to be reading this for the month of March, and our live show is going to be on Sunday, March 27th at 6 p.m. Eastern on this channel again. So exactly 1 month away. And then after that, this is a little farther out. After that, it will be Desiree's and my book club, the Quarterly Romance Book Club. We're going to be reading When You Get the Chance by Emma Lord. I don't have a copy of that to show, but we're going to be reading that. And our live show is it's either on May 1st or May 8th. I don't know off the top of my head. But make sure to follow at Booktube Chicks because it'll be announced on there, as well as anything else that's Booktube Chicks related. And also follow at Quarter Romance on Twitter because we also talk about it on there. I think that's everything that is coming up over the next month or two. So thank you all so much for joining us for our discussion of The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. And we hope to see you guys here next month for The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. So we will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.